My mom was an ER nurse, currently retired. 20 years ago a man walked into the ER carrying a person wrapped in a plastic bag and left. It was a little old granny lady with end-stage Alzheimer's. She was gaunt, covered in feces on her pajamas that looked like they weren't changed in weeks. She didn't have a diaper on but should have. She had bed sores full of maggots going to the bone and no teeth. Her body was curled up in a fetal position. She was very far into sepsis from both her bed sores and an untreated urinary tract infection. The smell was awful, like poop and decay. She couldn't speak, all she did was moan and cry as she was examined. This poor lady was bathed and given pain medicine to make her comfortable. My mom sat with her as much as she could until she died a few hours later. Nobody knew her name or anything about her. It was so sad. My mom tears up every time she recounts this story because it is one of the cruelest things she witnessed. The little lady wasn't disgusting, the man who abandoned her to die with strangers was. Judging by her condition she was neglected for years, but I don't know if the man who left her there was ever caught or prosecuted for it. I hope he was. My great-grandmother. She would trip her own daughter, who had to use a walker because of polio. I remember her laughing so loud because my aunt was flailing on the ground. She's fucking evil. How did great-granddad manage to stay married to her? She really was. He lived on the other side of the country, which looking back was not far enough away. Luckily, I had some really good grandparents to offset her influence. I often try to understand her, but I think she had an undiagnosed condition. I'm in the Navy. One deployment, a fellow sailor was bragging and laughing about paying for an escort and then deliberately unloading diarrhea on her face during sex. I stopped talking to him, but several tours later and I haven't forgotten how disgusting he was. I had a first-class petty officer who I quickly found out was a swinger. He and his wife were, to be clear. Anyway, he was a bit of a weirdo, but that's alright because I like weirdos. Hell, I'm one myself. That being said, I later found out that either after he retired or maybe just discharged from the Navy, he ended up in prison down in Louisiana for raping a 14-year-old girl. Anyway, if you've been in the Navy, or any branch of the military, for more than a day, you know that there are some serious fucking weirdos, man. There were a lot of them on board the Truman. My Nana had hepatitis C. At the time, the treatment for was these injections. She kept all her sharps in a Pepsi bottle under the sink. Well, one of my uncles broke in and stole her Pepsi bottle of old needles to use or to sell for others to use. Again, my Nana had hepatitis C. Everyone knew she had hepatitis C. Probably my older sister who SA'd my younger sister and I. She was 15, we were 6 and 5. She's also, now, unemployed, extraordinarily obese, doesn't shower often and is a hoarder, the garbage kind, not the collector kind. I haven't spoken to her in nearly a decade, but I occasionally hear random news about her from my mom. Typically, she fell on the stairs, or, she got another cat, kind of news. My younger sister didn't turn out much better, and I wonder if the SA had anything to do with that. Was she a victim herself by any chance? Not saying that excuses what she did to you and your sister, but the patterns definitely seem to be there. I don't know. If she was, it was never disclosed to my younger sister and I. My parents did say she had extremely weird sexual fixations and tendencies starting when she was around 12. She was always a very odd child. My theory is that she is autistic, due to the time diagnosing autism in kids was much less common and my parents were pretty negligent, so there's a chance judging by her behaviors. I'll probably never know, though. Edit to clarify, it's not just possible autism that caused the incident, but that paired with negligence from my parents and unmoderated internet access in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think altogether that could have caused a sexual fixation that resulted in what happened to my little sister and I. My boyfriend and I tried to help a friend move when her home was condemned and she had to move her stuff into storage. Found out the hard way that she and her mom were hoarders. They had 4 cats and didn't clean the cat litter very often. Or have them treated for fleas. How long did it take? We worked for 10 hours with no breaks and no food. My boyfriend slipped on the ice and hurt his tailbone. My uncle was a pedophile and a scammer, an abusive partner to my auntie. One of those monsters that's all charm and knows how to get people to like him when you first meet him, then the darkness starts to show and he would just control, use and abuse people. All in all, he was a bit crap. Cancer got him in the end, but I think by then most people wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire, much less shed a tear. The saddest thing really is he left so many people blaming themselves for what he did to them. My grandparents never forgave themselves for not seeing the signs when he was first introduced, and one of my cousins who was abused by him was so under his control her relationship with her husband nearly broke down at one point because she couldn't understand why he wouldn't let this monster have any relationship with their kids. I worked with a guy at a previous job. He was the quality manager. He was on his 7th marriage and struggled with porn addiction and painkillers. He would bring up anal sex in job interviews and then pop some pills, go to his office and stare at the ceiling for hours. He once shit himself. For his 7th wedding, it was vape themed and everyone got vapes as gifts and for all wedding pictures. We fired him. He went to be a corporate guy at Yankee Candle and was fired from there too, and last I heard he sexually assaulted a girl and somehow took medical leave for a bad elbow and to get more painkillers. What do you mean vape themed? Like, is everyone dressed as different jewel flavors? Lol. So every guest got a new vape, the bride and groom wore vapes around their neck for the ceremony and the wedding party, and guests all blew smoke for the wedding's pics. It was the trashiest thing I've ever seen. What a piece of shit, but a vape-themed wedding is literally the funniest thing I've heard in weeks. An old coworker. Never showered, picked her nose so much she'd get them smeared on her keyboard. So gross about it that she earned the nickname Booger Lady. She was eventually fired after she got multiple ringworm rashes and didn't treat it out of sheer laziness. She didn't even care that it was contagious and found it funny, then told everyone that it was a perk of being a dog mommy. Gross. Reminds me of an old coworker I had. She would use a butter knife from the shared kitchen, plop in her chair in the shared call center, take off her shoes, and shave her heels and clean under her toenails with the knife. It was beyond disgusting. When I worked at the Walmart in a piddly little Missouri town, no other jobs around, of course, an older woman and her middle-aged daughter came in, looking at electronics and eventually needing help. Daughter was on a mobility scooter but mom was walking around on her own 2 feet. Daughter smelled off. Just like she probably hadn't taken a shower in a bit too long and likely lived in a house with not great cleaning standards, but I figured, hey, if she's in a scooter she probably has some difficulty getting around and taking care of things, so I let it go. Then mom sauntered up. I am not exaggerating. This woman likely had not showered in years. The stench was honestly beyond what I can describe in words. Her hair was stringy and greasy, her skin had a stomach-churning sheen to it. I have seen actual homeless people with severe mental illness yet better hygiene. I simply cannot even begin to describe the smell. To call it sickening is like calling it sunshine and happiness. I was the first person her daughter approached, and then she, the mother, came up to me, and I could only speak for about a minute and a half before I turned to my boss and said, "Hey, they're looking for X, do you know anything about that?" And he, who'd been staring with eyes the size of dinner plates the whole time, sighed but did come up, as I needed to run to the back room to take a breather. He understood. The strangest thing was that in every other respect, she appeared completely and utterly normal. She didn't act strangely. She had her purse, her car keys, and was able to buy the stuff she was looking for. She wanted a television for her trailer and an Xbox 360 for her grandson, showing my age. That's all. She didn't act crazy or like she was suffering from something. She just didn't bathe, but holy shit, she did not fucking bathe. An adolescent psychiatrist. He took a shine to his young female patients. He took his time, groomed them, did drugs with them, injected them with drugs and molested them, burned his offices down, twice, gaslighted everyone in his orbit for years. When it finally caught up to him, he was too ill to stand trial. 30 years of abuse of vulnerable young girls and women whom no one believed, until a particular cop did. I saw a post his 60-year-old daughter made recently, still adoring, bordering on religious reverence. Edit, he's dead. We talked about it. But we didn't feel one bit better for it. Sometimes, dead is not dead enough. It was the police officer that told us, 5 years after the initial trial began. This stand-up human being called each and every one of the women involved. If he was able, he came in person to talk. He cried with me when we talked. He was better than any therapist. Thanks RK, you were one of the good guys, rest in peace. My uncle. He was a high-powered lawyer married to a judge. They were both evil. Anyways, he was estranged from my grandmother and my mom for years until my grandmother was in the hospital dying and unable to speak. He swooped in, and somehow managed to gain power of attorney out of nowhere, wrote my mother and our entire family out of the will somehow, and sold everything my grandmother owned, leaving my mom with nothing to remember her by. My grandmother had intended to leave everything to my mom, except her car, which she had told me repeatedly that she intended to become my first car. That never happened. We didn't see a cent from anything that he sold and didn't receive anything to remember her by. My mom was my grandmother's best friend and caretaker and wasn't even allowed at the funeral. He didn't need the money, it was all out of spite. At times, I make a wish that hell is a real place just for people like this. Sometimes, in anger, I feel the same. I, however, still do my best to forgive. If not for their sake, then for mine. That sort of hate carries with it a weight I no longer wish to carry. It happened a long time ago. I regret posting all this. I guess I still have a ways to go. Never met them, but I just spent 2 full days cleaning out a small apartment owned by a couple who were evicted. But I think I gathered a good impression of them as people. The cleanest room had dozens of soda bottles, plastic bags, cigarettes, bottles of pills and vitamin supplements scattered across the floor. 2 rooms were literally 3 feet deep in trash. I discovered plenty of gross sex toys and drug paraphernalia in there, as well as a nice helping of black mold along the walls. There were a month's worth of half-emptied dishes in the sink with plenty of rotten mold on them. They had lived there less than a year. Edit, just remembered an old man who used to show up at my church on Sundays. He would stop young women and tell them that they needed to get pregnant to be saved and receive crowns in heaven. He would also randomly film things and people, sometimes even tracking them around the room. He also had a friend who at one point approached 8-year-old me who had no idea who he was and told me, "It's time for bed." I did some research many years later and discovered that the first guy was an ex-military who had been dishonorably discharged for grooming, then sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl. My cousin's husband. She was 16 and he was 30 when they started dating. Yes, he did groom her, yes, they got married, at her religious parents' insistence. At her brother's wedding, he wore dirty holy clothes and smelled like a dirty basement. He never cleaned or took care of his wife or son. Are they still together? They both died. She was sickly, and passed away. He died a year later. So it wasn't happy for anyone. God, that's so depressing, what a sad life. I hope their child is doing alright. He's doing his best, his aunts rally around him. He's in his 20s now, and is trying hard to live on his own. For part of middle school, I went to a small private school that, thankfully, no longer exists. The head of the school for my 7th grade year was a man I'll call Dr. S, and I just sensed bad vibes from him. He came across as arrogant, more like a sleazy salesman than an educator. That's because he was more of the former than the latter. At the end of the year he suddenly left his role. Under very suspicious circumstances, he got back into the troubled teen industry. For those who don't know, the troubled teen industry is an industry built upon tricking parents of kids with behavior issues. They get the parents to send their kids to their expensive therapeutic schools in order to fix the aforementioned issues. In reality, those schools are often poorly regulated, with inexperienced staff and programs that more resemble institutionalized child abuse than education. Dr. S started 2 of these schools, one in Virginia and another in South Carolina. The one in Virginia is now closed, but the one in South Carolina still operates to this very day. This is despite the fact it has been sued multiple times for failing to protect their students from sexual abuse, whether it be from a staff member or another student. From what I heard about Dr. S, this does not surprise me. One of the rumors of why he left his position at my middle school was that he slept with an underage exchange student who lived with him. I've also seen reports that he has the boys in his program sleep in his basement. Even if he never personally abused any children, which I doubt is the case, he still allowed the abuse of children to occur and profited from it. So yeah, he's the most disgusting person I've ever met. 13-year-old me was right about him. For more information, read this fantastic webcomic about the notorious Elon School. It's now closed, but during its time it was arguably the worst of any of these programs. My brother for quite a few reasons. Mainly because he SA me when I was young and never was held accountable. Second, and almost equally as evil, was taking advantage of our parents when my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He and his shitbag kids moved in with them and made the house unlivable and never paid a dime in rent. Also, when my mom's condition started to progress and my dad had to run to the store and he trusted her to my brother, he would lock her in the bathroom. I didn't find that out until after my husband and I moved them in with us so we could help take care of them. And the chef's kiss of deplorable behavior. He didn't come to the funeral because we wouldn't ship her body back to the state they were from because my father wanted her here where he lives now and can visit her easier than 7-hour road trips. You're a better person than me for not beating the shit out of him. Thank you, And that's what my husband says as well. We've been working through a lot of this in my trauma therapy, and basically I need him with me and not in jail. My roommate, who I thought was a boyfriend for over 35 years, now former roommate, has never worked a real job, played off people's sympathy, fathered kids and moved back to California leaving the mother so he would get more money from supplemental security income. Didn't shower in the last 8 years that I lived with him, etc. He's the guy you give the shirt off your back literally, and when the moment suits him you get the knife. Have known this guy through a lot of stuff, and all the friends he has made eventually get it. He has been in a hold pattern because he thinks he's going to inherit his dad's money. Follow your gut with people. It's like these women that marry serial killers. In the last year I have had a wake-up call about a lot of people I have befriended, a handful of wonderful people and a truckload of shitheads. Hindsight. You lived with someone for 8 years who didn't shower? Please tell me you had discussions with him. I flipped out on him a few times. It's that thing where you let it go and try not to throw up and just lose it. His lifestyle applied to not just his person, dirty everything. I bailed the whole scenario on February. Left the apartment and stayed. My former sister-in-law's younger sister. She lives in a basement with her dog that she never takes outside. He pisses and shits all over her floor, and she'll just leave it there for days. She leaves old food, drinks, plates, and dishes on that floor as well. She'll leave it there after it goes rotten or moldy. She has terrible personal hygiene. She almost never showers. You can smell her ass, feet, and vag from a mile away. It's a combination of sour cheese feet, dry poop, and rotten fish. Indoors her stink is unbearable, and she covers a wide radius when she's outside. She never cleans up after herself in the bathroom. She never flushes. She'll leave butt dust, menstrual blood, and just straight up shit on the seat without a care in the world. The most fucked up thing is that she's married and her husband is just as disgusting as she is. I trained in a culinary course with a woman like this. They finally did something about it when she stood in the middle of the kitchen scratching her vag, hand in pants, in front of a group of teenage volunteers. And they only did something then because I threatened to walk out and never come back. Yeah, funny thing about that, she works in a bakery at a local grocery store. I don't go there anymore. Save the dog, if you can. I wish I could. There were times where I'd tell my brother to go over there and take him to the SPCA. He could just tell her that the dog got out and ran away. As far as I know, she's totally ruined him. When she leaves the house, she just leaves him in a dark basement by himself. He's very territorial and has a very bad temper that borders on dangerous. No one will interact with him anymore because they're afraid of him. I really think if he ever got out, he'd end up just being put down. My dad. I always had an odd relationship with him. He was just a tad inappropriate on his end. At 15, he kissed me while drinking, exclaiming, "You always look like you want to kiss me." I ran and locked myself in my room, hid that secret for weeks until my mom pried it from me. He was confronted that night. He broke out in full body sobs, saying he had no memory of it, and he'll never drink again. Guess what? He drank like it was water until the day he died. He died on May the 12th of last year, my mother's birthday. I had been very angry at him in the last years of his life, not because of what he did to me but because of how he treated my mother. He treated her like she was lower than him. If you ever heard the song Labor by Paris Paloma, that's how he was. Now, back to the heart of the problem, he was inappropriate with me. After he died, I started thinking back to when I was a child. I decided to call my eldest sister one day. I asked her if our dad was inappropriate to her or towards our other two sisters. She said yes, he used to play bathroom games with her. I hate that man, so goddamn much. I kind of wish he was still alive so I could punch him in the defibrillator. Sorry for the book, it's been kept in. Your mother stayed with him? She did. She's my stepmother. She never adopted me and could not get legal custody of me if they had separated. She stayed to protect me. I'm so sorry for everything you went through. Thank you, it's been a journey for sure.